Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'll get a Switch 2 eventually, but it definitely probably won't be as soon as I bought it. Because I bought a Switch, I think it was like a month after it first came out. And I intentionally bought it just to play Breath of the Wild.
Dude,
Like
we forgot
that
about the
was the sole
Switch
reason.
Lite. We didn't talk about that at all.
Oh, damn, you're right. Totally forgot about that. Well, that came out before the OLED, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Yeah. Trying to think when that came out exactly. I want to say it was a couple years after Switch originally released
It
that
definitely
came out.
happened after I bought mine, so post 2020.
Yeah. I always wondered how much that sold because that's an inferior Switch, and then the Nintendo Switch when it originally came out was even back then used outdated hardware.
No, this is September 2019. What the fuck? This is the internet's worst gaming podcast. I'm your host, Loki Jarson. Stizzy, last time we did a show, it'd been so long, I forgot to introduce us. I'm Loki Jarson, that's Joe Stizzy.
Did you really? I don't remember that. I thought you did.
Yes.
We were
We
so
just
out of
started talking
practice.
immediately.
Well, we're still the same people, I think. But yes,
Fortunately or unfortunately.
yeah, we're in. Our listeners are not used to hearing two shows in this close proximity with each other, so this is another surprise.
Yeah, we want to get back into more regular recordings and shows in 2025. So
It's all
that's the
about
plan.
reinforcing the good habits. Well, us talking may not be good according to some people, but we like it because there's always something to talk about, or it seems like there's always something. And there was a couple big things this week.
Mhm.
I think the first was Sony said that they were
Yes.
closing down some games, some live service
Yeah, so
games to be exact.
So I know for sure one of them. And they named us two studios. It's Ben's studio who did what's the bike zombie game called? Days Gone,
Days Gone, yeah.
and Blue Point who did a bunch of remasters for them. One of the team was working on an undisclosed live service game. The other one was disclosed live service game, a God of War live service game. Uh, those both sound like fucking horrendous ideas. And while it's a good thing that they were canceled, I wonder how far into the process were they canceled. It was a bad idea to greenlight these in the first place.
Yeah, just talking about it is going too far, in my opinion. But I don't even know how a God of War game, a live service game, would even work.
Did you play the PS3 God of War Ascension?
No, but I know that did have a multiplayer, but I never
Yes, but
played that.
it was just like TDM and stuff where you play. I don't even think you play as a Kratos. You just play as a dude and you beat up other dudes.
Oh, just like a Greek warrior or something like that. Another
Yeah.
just nameless Spartan. Oh, okay. I did hear. I mean, I did hear that it was actually quite enjoyable for what it was. But yeah, I never knew about it at the time, and I just learned about it later when it was well closed down. So this may have been something along those lines, just with the current Norse mythology God of War perspective with behind the shoulder and all that. But still, it's like, what are you doing? Like killing a god every month or season or something like that? It's yeah.
Yeah, I imagine you'd fight some like Titan style thing, but most of your shit would be like every other MMO online game resources. You take your chain axes and you chop down some trees and you craft pelts and other boring shit.
I would want nothing to do with that part of the game. Now, if there was something like some MMO style where you're teaming up with other people in sort of some raid event, taking down a god or a titan or something like that, that could be interesting. But that's not how you build live service games, or that's not how they want you to build live service games. They want to just fill it with, like you said, endless grinding and tedious, busy work until
Well,
you
I've
might
chopped
have a
down
chance.
too many trees today. I need to buy the opportunity to chop down more trees.
Or let some stew with goat meat simmering in it just over 2 or 3 days or something like that before you can finally eat. Yeah, no thanks.
We talked last time about the Jim Ryan 12 live service games that he announced some time ago. Apparently, including these 2 cancellations, this leads to 8 cancellations. 1 success, in air quotes, Helldivers 2. And that's had, its ups and downs. But it launched, and people still play it, so I guess that counts as a success. It's not the peak that it was last year before they fucked everything up on PC.
They had one of the biggest multiplayer games of the year, and a sure slam dunk for live service or new multiplayer game of the year. But yeah, with the drama that went on there with the game not being available in a bunch of countries and requiring a PlayStation account even on a PC or playing it through Steam, it just, yeah, they lost a lot of customers and a lot of goodwill doing that. So, and that might also be what's attributing to, them canceling all these other live service games. So we need to get to the number to 0 before it's a complete success.
Fair Games is still coming out. That's happening. That plus Helldivers, Concord counts. So it was the failure of Concord. And again, I don't want to give a lot of people saying, "Oh, good job, Sony! A round of applause." Now you get Blue Point to work on your Bloodborne remaster. That'll never happen. I don't want to give Sony any credit for canceling the things they should never have greenlit in the first place. Someone in the fucking boardroom, when they bring up the idea, "Hey, what about a God of War live service game?" Someone else should have said, "No, you're fired. Get out."
The meme of throwing the guy out the window, but
absolutely.
He's the guy that actually gives bad ideas. It should never have gotten to this stage, and it just
they only have bad ideas now at Sony.
Yeah. Fixing a bad idea, like you said, I give them like half credit. I don't want to give them full credit because it should never have gotten this far. But it's like a lot of these major studios and companies are they're just taking the buckshot approach to all these live service games, just trying to throw out and see which one will be their quote unquote Fortnite. Not that any of them will ever be as big as Fortnite, but trying to find one that they can have sustainable success with. And I can kind of see that, from that perspective. Because if these companies just had one live service game and then they concentrated on actual games like single player and real cooperative multiplayer games, I'd be okay with that. I'd be able to learn to live with it. The problem is with taking the approach of, just trying to test the waters and throw out any and every idea to find the one that will actually gain some traction. It's costing a lot of time, a lot of resources, and you're tangling up all these studios' times and developers into trying to find it.
You can't. Everyone is still. I said this almost a decade ago at this point. How long has Fortnite been around? But Fortnite has ruined gaming, not from the gamer's perspective, but from the developers and publishers' perspective.
Yeah, I think it came out. Sorry, I was going to say. I think it came out 2017. Fortnite. Yeah.
They all see the massive amount of money, but don't understand how it made it. It made it by licensing. They license stuff, or other companies go to them and say, "Pay us X amount, and we'll let you have our dude." And boom, you can have Batman shoot Scooby-Doo in the head, or fucking whatever. I don't know what's going on there.
The basic gameplay loop was, got its first. That's where it first started gaining popularity, but it didn't hit the mega ultra high stratosphere like you're talking about until they started licensing and getting LeBron James and Wolverine in their games and shit like that. That's when it started just appealing to a bunch of different players. Not even players, not even people who play video games. They just get this Fortnite game because it's free and their buddies play it, and look, it's got Scooby-Doo in it, so that's fun.
Back in 2020, a certain thing happened, and what really took off briefly, people are still trying to recapture that, is social games that you could play online. Stuff like Fall Guys and Among Us. And then you still see, snippets come out here and there. What's the game where you're stealing shit from like in the dark. You're like 4 random orange guys. What the fuck is that called? Lethal Company. Yes.
Oh,
And other
yeah.
dumbass like streamer games like that kind of got popular, but because you couldn't go anywhere because the government said, "I'm sorry." So you see a couple of those pop up here and there, but those are also dying off. It's like, who the fuck plays Fall Guys anymore, or Stumble Guys, or Party Animals, or any of these other derivatives? How many derivatives of Among Us came out and don't exist anymore in that time period? So the industry is still like chasing these trends that are dying out on their own. Fortnite exists basically as an entity unto itself now. Fortnite is too big to fail, really. We're in that period. And I say that because they fucked with so much stuff and made people mad. Millions of people still play it. It's not like Call of Duty where if top streamers aren't playing it, then nobody's playing it sort of shit. But to get back to the live service thing, like, everyone wants that Fortnite money. They want that success, but they're not capable of getting it. It's too late to do it, one. Like, you should not be chasing the live service trend in 2025. If you were planning a live service game, cancel it immediately because you're not going to catch up. You're way too far behind already.
No, I think you're exactly right. And a lot of what has been plaguing the video game industry for the past almost decade now is these studios and companies not recognizing that Fortnite was an exception, not the rule. So you should not be trying to emulate them. Because you're
Marvel
right.
Rivals is an anomaly.
Yes. Yeah. Even that, nobody could have seen the success of that game's coming. We saw the models beforehand, and they look very nice and stuff like that, but the player numbers are crazy because it is a fun game. I've talked about it in our best game of the year show, and it's a fun game, and I think that's what's helping people stick around and getting their friends to play it with them and all that. But not even the developers could have foreseen that, because a lot of people are saying that they should have timed the release of the Fantastic Four movie, and it's like they couldn't have known that. It's hard to predict that kind of stuff.
Also, this is me, I name myself after Marvel characters, so trust me when I say this. Marvel, as of like the comics, is not in the popular zeitgeist and has not been for, I would say, about 15 years. The movies have not been in the zeitgeist, I'd say, for about 5 years. That shit's on the decline. And I guarantee you Marvel Rivals will make more money than all 3 superhero movies come out in 2025 combined.
I think that's a very, very safe bet, especially when you know what the movies they're releasing are.
Yes. So when you see other people being like, oh, why didn't Warner Brothers make a Rivals, like a DC Rivals? It's like, you're a fucking idiot. It won't work.
Well, they tried with Multiverse, and that sucked, and I think they're
they
close
tried
to
to make
shutting
a
that
Smash
down.
Brothers clone. Yeah, and they lost their ass on it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to play that shit. So yeah, get back to Sony. It's like, good job, guys. You shouldn't have done this in the first place. It's like we're not even at like the peak of the Jim Ryan era's mistakes we have to clean up.
It's funny. I heard a statement from, I think someone asked, I think it's Shuhei Yoshida, I think his name is, the former PlayStation big boss man. And I don't know if this was in relation to the news that they're shutting down these games or these live service games, or if it was just completely coincidental, but he said that gamers should be buying more remasters and remakes from Sony. That way they have the money to make single player games. And I'm thinking, Yoshida, you're a freaking idiot. You don't believe that for a second? Because you know the reason they're not making these single player games is because these studios have been tied up developing these stupid live service games.
And plus, one breakthrough game they had last year, the fucking Astrobot, that wasn't like a million seller or anything. It did fine. It didn't blow its budget. But it didn't like innovate. There's nothing new or different about Astrobot.
It was one of their most successful titles, and funnily enough, it was made by one of their Japanese studios. And I'm almost at the point with Sony. It's like, just close the Western studios down, and you might actually start making some money again. But
well, that's where all the live service stuff comes from. That's not from Japan.
I know, that's why I said just close them down at this point. You might be better off.
This does not mean, of course, that Bluepoint's suddenly going to make that Bloodborne remake. It's literally never happening. Get over it.
Well, and Bluepoint they've become sort of like the de facto studio to make a really good remaster or remake, and it was just kind of funny to hear that statement from Yoshida saying you should buy the remaster or remake. It's like, well, Sony's got their sole remake studio working on a live service. Now they've shut it down, but who knows how long they've been working on it.
To transition here a little bit, speaking of bad companies making bad decisions, there have been more reports that Ubisoft wants to remake Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, arguably their most popular entry ever. The problem is that won't come out in this year, and they have to release another game first, Assassin's Creed Shadows, which I think will do very badly, and then their stock will go under, and then Tencent will buy them outright, and then Tencent says, yeah, we're not doing any of this shit. Because that was another story that was underreported. I couldn't find it when I was dicking around the background here. There's an idea being floated out there that they're going to form another company. Basically, Tencent's going to take over, break up the assets, like I predicted, and they're going to use those assets to make, more Far Cry, more Assassin's Creed, but with other studios making them, not Ubisoft France, Ubisoft Canada, Ubisoft Givenchy, Ubisoft Budapest, any of that shit.
Do you think they could possibly just like rebrand it and still like use the studio location and some of the employees and stuff, or bring in their own people?
I think they're bringing their own people. I think they, no joke, will shut it all down. I think it's that bad over there. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to say it. Nobody wants to admit it. But just, like, the proof was the games they released. Nothing they released last year sold well. And their arguable big success, the Prince of Persia thing, the Metroidvania, The Lost Crown, they closed the studio down back in October. And it was what they're celebrating, meanwhile, on X, they're celebrating the 1 year anniversary of that game. It's like, you fuckers closed that studio.
That is ironic to see that. And I'm trying to think, was Black Flag their best seller, Ubisoft? Because I know Valhalla sold a crap ton, like 20 million or something.
I don't have the chart in front of me. When I say most popular, I mean like when people are saying, "Oh, what's the best Assassin's Creed?" Everybody always goes to Black Flag, but they don't go to it because of the assassination. You know what I mean?
It's definitely one of my favorite Assassin's Creed, and I played it about a year or two ago, and it's still great, but there's definitely some things that could be touched up, mainly with the gameplay portion. But
yeah, I think to sort of steal a phrase from you, like, it's a really great game. It's not a great Assassin's Creed game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of the best pirate games ever made.
Yeah.
don't know if it was a great Assassin's Creed game, and that's kind of, that's how I felt at the time, because I was a big fan of it when more around 2. I played the first one, but I mean it was such a awesome game that I didn't really mind it at the time. And if Ubisoft was in a better place, and if Shadows had a chance of being a big success, which, like you said, it doesn't look like it's going to be, then I would probably be pretty excited for a remaster or remake of Black Flag, even though it's part of the endemic of studios not having any original ideas anymore.
Yep. Plus, there would be absolutely story stuff they would fuck with. They couldn't help themselves.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, there's definitely some scenes that I could think they'd be reworking. Couldn't do now.
Yeah, pirates were not the nicest people in the world. I don't know if you know this.
Yes, Edward was a little bit of a libertine, if you may not.
They all were. They were all just like big gay orgies with each other.
Have that be the subtitle.
Speaking of big gay orgies, the head of Dragon Age, the Veilguard, is leaving, Cory Bush.
Nice segue.
There are rumors. Huh?
Nice segue.
Well, it's also a failing studio full of retards. Mm-hmm. There are rumors that the studio itself that made Veilguard, not all of BioWare, but the studio that specifically worked on Veilguard, will be probably not shuttered, but certainly going to have layoffs.
Yeah, Edmonton, I believe, was the studio. And I want to say, sorry, I saw a number 85%. At first, I thought that was employees. I was like, wait a minute, you might as well just shut it down. But I think that was like from their targeted projection that they wanted the total sales for Veilguard to beat, and they were like 85% short of the mark, and it's like, which is really bad.
So which means they only sold 15% of what they thought they were going to?
I don't know. I think I have to look into that more. That's just a number being thrown around. I don't know. I don't know if any like actual credible site is reporting on that or anything like that. But yeah, one thing is for sure. Corrine has left.
Yeah, Corey. Good riddance. So long. Thanks for nothing, fucker.
That's what I say. Yeah. Thanks for ruining one of my favorite video game franchises while you're at it. Appreciate that, pal.
James Franco, first time .gif.
Oh, it's not my first time either.
It's not the first time, but it still sucks.
No.
This is like the 40th time.
Yeah, no, you think I'd get used to it, and I kind of have at this point, but it still sting. This one especially did sting.
We're not comparing feelings here, but maybe you're feeling what I'm feeling about Ubisoft. It's like, you stupid bastards, you had it all, but you and your ego and your pride just fucking ruined your company. And I say that as a guy who owns almost every Ubisoft game they published the last 15 years. Except for, like, the Rabbids game. I could give a fuck about that.
Yeah, the difference is, the last 15 years, BioWare has released, 2 games?
Yeah, and they both failed. All 3 have failed. There's 3 games. Andromeda counts, and Anthem counts, and this one.
Yeah, and a remaster. And that's been about it for BioWare. But with the quality of their games steadily declining, I guess that's not the worst thing in the world, but just the time it took and the resources wasted on Veilguard, it's no wonder that they're having to close up shop. Like I said, this one stinks. BioWare closing down made some of my favorite games, my most favorite RPGs. And like I said in our best of 2024 show, I did not play any of Veilguard, but I saw plenty of clips online, social media, and it was not anything like Dragon Age. It was not even like graphically. You can just like whatever. They went with a whole new art style that did not fit the world. Characters, tone, music. It's like whatever. Heard some bits, sounded okay, but just top to bottom, it was just an entirely different entity, a different kind of game than the other Dragon Age titles, and it was unrecognizable.
It's an okay game. It's not a good Dragon Age game by any stretch of the imagination.
Combat was very flashy, very, it just looked like it was one of those kind of was like, okay, a lot of particle effects going around, a lot of knights jumping in full plate armor, doing backflips, crap like that, stuff that they made fun of in previous games. And it looked like it was just one of those things like, okay, just, kind of would be repetitive after a while. But, yeah, like I said, a lot of things, a lot of mismatched sort of parts that didn't make a Dragon Age game. It made something that was a complete and utter failure.
R.I.P.
Yep. We had some good times.
Any more failures on our list? This seems exactly like our show from the other week. It's just like, oh, this sucks, and this sucks, and this sucks.
There's plenty others. I think there's one thing you mentioned last week, and I was kind of half listening, so I apologize, but the Suicide Squad Kill Justice League developers came out and said, oh no, the Justice League members were actually clones in the games, and the real ones didn't really die. But it brings up a lot of sticky questions like, well, if that's the case, then where was the real Justice League? Why weren't they fighting Brainiac? And they explained it all the way in one computer generated image, and I don't know what they were trying to do with that. It's not
just cover their ass.
I guess it's not going to save the game or the studio or their jobs or anything like that. It was.
It's like, honest to God, I 100% of this game. Fucking why bother? Like, the percentage, we checked this the other day, it's for a PlayStation 2, when you complete a game, they give you a platinum trophy, which means you did everything you could in the game. The percentage was 0.6. So, of the people who've gotten trophies in that game, 0.6% of people have bothered to do what I did. So, I don't know how this sold very badly. So, the number of people who went through it all the way is going to be an even smaller number to have seen the end and the end of this game. So, like, who gives a shit at this point whether or not they were the real Justice League? It literally does not matter.
I was going to ask, do you remember if there was a trophy for beating the game and what that number was?
There is. I'd have to look.
No, it's probably not very high.
No, the most. I did see this too. The most common one, which is the first one you get, is under 50%.
See, even that is really eye-opening and tells you a lot. The people
yes,
there weren't a lot of people that bought it in the first place, but the ones that did couldn't even get very far in the game. So,
and that was again, as of this recording, that was last night, which means it's been on PS Plus for some time.
Yeah, almost about a month. I think they added in for the January games.
Yes,
but it's been out for almost a whole year. This coming February, so that's another. I know they're talking about trying to make another Arkham game. I know they had Shadows. I don't know how well that went. We've talked in the past about how VR is not really going anywhere. It's not selling a lot of units. They didn't. PlayStation in particular, I mean, did not do themselves any favors by not having backwards compatibility with PSVR 2. I don't know what they were thinking about that. Oh, yeah,
that's a giant mistake.
That was a really bonehead move. But, so it's... I don't know if they'll get the opportunity to even make another game, much less another Arkham game.
The dumbest company in America is Warner Brothers. They're also the most unpredictable company. Because I just have fucking no idea what they're going to do from one moment to the next. It's like, maybe Multiverses goes another year, despite no one playing it. Maybe they force what's remains of Rocksteady to make another Batman game. Maybe James Gunn scraps every single thing after Superman doesn't make enough money. Except Supergirl is already filming. Even though they're not doing The Authority. It turns out Supergirl is going to be the next movie after that. Oh, with Lobo. Lobo wasn't in the comic? Don't worry about it. Nobody knows who Lobo is outside of, like, super nerds? Don't worry about it.
Lobo needs to be in a Superman movie because he's a Superman villain. I don't know what they're thinking of introducing him as Supergirl, and if Superman doesn't do great, then Supergirl's got no chance. Warner Brothers is it's like Star Wars. I was thinking about this earlier. I don't know if you could do a worse job on purpose than what these two companies, and they're not alone, but say, Loki, if George Lucas gave you the keys to Lucasfilm and said, oh, here you go, Loki. Just do your best there, pal. You would do a better job than what Disney has done.
I have already said, for all these fucking companies, for Disney, Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, Warner Brothers, you need to stop. You need to stop making stuff. PlayStation, Ubisoft, you need to stop making stuff, period. Don't greenlight any new projects for years. Accumulate capital. Accumulate wealth. Pay off your fucking debts. Then we can start thinking about new ideas. No one's going to do that.
No. The only thing that you can know for certain, in regards to WB at least, is that you have no idea what they're going to do. They're predictable in their unpredictability. But one thing you can know for sure is that it's ultimately going to be the detriment of their company and their stock.
It's going to lose money.
Yes. Yeah. And they can buy up all the other tiny little companies that they want. It can't save them forever.
No. I'm sad now. There was a new announcement that we already knew about. Nintendo, which we barely ever talk about here on the show. Stizzy, when I was doing my editing for last episode's Best of the Year, I realized we only talked about one Switch game.
I didn't play a lot of Switch games. The only ones I did were old ones, like Bayonetta. I actually got into that series.
Unicorn Overload wasn't on Switch that you played?
Yeah, I played it on PS5 just because I wanted the trophy. I wanted the trophies.
Okay, so we talked about.
I wanted a little better.
We talked about zero Switch games then.
Pretty much, yeah. I thought about getting it for the Switch, and I may still, but yeah.
I mean, I have one, and I do play it from time to time, just not nearly as much as the other two. It's like it's not like Nintendo Switch is a good console with a lot of good games. I just don't play it as much. There's no rhyme or reason.
We've talked plenty of times on the show and in our off air how you and I, we both grew up playing these Nintendo IPs and Mario and Zelda and what have you, and they've been a big part of my gaming past. Growing up playing them, and I love them, and there's some of them that are some of my favorite games of all time. And I hate using the term outgrow because I still play these games, but yeah, I just don't play the Nintendo systems all that much anymore. But every now and then I will. And I know a lot of people have been waiting on what the next console from Nintendo is going to be. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people were speculating that it's going to be a more powerful Switch, and then it'll be called Switch 2. And some people dismiss that, saying that's too simple. That's, there's no thought into that. There's no innovation into that idea, because that's what Nintendo has kind of carved into their corner of the gaming market, is coming up with,
I think,
like, new gimmicks for their consoles. Yeah.
I think it's a better name than going from the Wii to the Wii U, because there was general confusion among not the normies, we like to lovingly call them, of like, what's the difference between a Wii and a Wii U? You know instinctively the difference between a Switch and a Switch 2. You know one came after.
A lot of people contribute that Wii U didn't sell as well because people were confused. Like, not just the normie gamers, but their parents, buying the consoles for them. They would
yeah.
go somewhere and like, what's the difference between a Wii and a Wii U? I don't know, but a Switch and a Switch 2, pretty easy to discern it. Because... Sorry, I was just going to say, I don't know if Nintendo's ever done just the next number for their next console generation. No. It's always been some different name, Super, they put a Super in front of it, or a U, or a completely different name.
An XL.
Yes, or an XL, yeah.
The Switch came out in 2017, right?
Yes, 2017.
I got one used in 2020. And I got it used because I was like, well, even back in 2020, there were rumors that they're going to announce the next thing pretty soon, an upgrade, like a mid-gen refresh. And they did, and it was called the OLED, and I was not interested enough to upgrade. So for the Switch 2, we don't have any specs. Like, there's a 2-minute trailer that they showed, it's a little bit bigger, and the Joy-Cons are a little bit bigger, and shit's different colors. And the kickstand is not crap now, so you might be able to actually use it. But we don't know what the processing power is. We don't know if it'll do 4K. It won't. We don't know, shit about battery life. We don't know shit about internet. Nothing.
I've heard some rumors about potential, graphics card or chips that they might be using, but again, that's rumors. If there's some of the sources that were predicting, or that did correctly predict that this was going to be called the Switch 2, then I might have to look for those and see what they're coming up with. It's obviously just going to be it is going to be more powerful than the regular Switch. Mm-hmm. The design, like you said, is bigger, it's darker, it's got pastel rubber base on the joysticks, which I'm not really a big pastel fan, but it's funny because the Switch 2 looks a lot like a lot of what the PC companies, like what they made their handhelds look like to copy the Switch originally.
Yes.
So it's like,
it looks like a Rogue Argus Ally, whatever the fuck it's called, or a Steam Deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like they're imitating the imitator. So I thought that was funny. It does look sleek. It looks a little better. A little bigger than the OLED. But as far as performance, I agree with you. I don't think it's going to play 4K. Hopefully they're going to, gosh, I was just thinking about this earlier, and I just assumed, because they came out and said that Switch 1 games are going to be compatible with Switch 2. Most of them, not all of them, probably not the cardboard. What was it called? You were telling me?
Labo.
Yeah, the Labo. Yeah, the Labo, where you can make a cardboard controller, like little frame for the controller or what have you. That probably won't be compatible, but their big marquee titles, I definitely see you being able to play them. And I just assumed that they were going to have free performance updates, to be able to play these games at a little bit higher quality, little higher frame rate and what have you. But knowing Nintendo and how greedy they be and how they are and they be, and how much they like to release remasters, I thought, geez, that would be so like them to just release like $20 or $30 upgraded versions of these Switch classic games.
That's way more likely to happen. You're going to have Tears of the Kingdom for the Switch 2 specific. You're going to have, I don't know if they'll do Mario Kart 9 again, because the only game they showed a little tiny snippet of gameplay was the next Mario Kart. Actually, this would be Mortal Kombat. Oh, jeez. Okay, first of all, I don't play Mario Kart, so I don't know if the next one is called the 9th one or the 10th one. Apparently, it's the 9th one, because the previous one on the Switch was Mario Kart 8. My fucking problem is people on X are calling it MK9. And you can't do that. There's already an MK9, and every time I see it, I say Mortal Kombat like I just did.
That was a funny meme, and that took me a second to get that. When I saw that meme, I was like, oh yeah, MK9 is Mortal Kombat 9, to most people. So, I don't know either. I kept waiting for Mario Kart 8 to come down to a reasonable price, and it never really did, unless you count $50 as reasonable. But they've released a lot of characters in that game, so I don't know if they're going to port those over, or you just going to buy them all over.
We'll get into price points in a second, but to round off the game stuff, like I don't think they're going to give free upgrades for resolution. I think it will either do that natively, or they will in fact sell a remaster. I don't think they're going to bother, not... Like, why would you not charge the client for that?
If it's natively, that's one thing. But if they're re-releasing Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and Bayonetta 3 and saying, hey, if you want to play these games at 60 frames per second, which they probably should be, then you got to pay $20. Then, if that's the case, I'm never buying a Switch 2. I'll just say, forget it. I can just live with the lower frame rates on the old Switch. So
then we have to ask how long this is going to be, because, by the way, we're still waiting for the other two fuckers in the room, whose consoles have been out since 2020, to do the same thing. They haven't yet. Microsoft is still making Xbox One games. Sony is still making PS4 games.
I got a feeling Nintendo's probably going to still be making Switch 1 games because it's sold so many units. Is it their best-selling console? Is it their second best? It's up there.
I think I'd have to look at a chart, but they've been in a bitch fight with Sony over the PS2. It's like, who really gives a shit?
Well, I meant specifically Nintendo, because I know the 3DS sold just an absolute crap ton. So did the Wii as well, and the Switch is right out there. So it's not going to be an immediate switch over, I don't think. I do expect there to be some big release titles, like their big IPs. I mean, either a new Mario Galaxy 3 or Odyssey 2 or something new or something, or maybe another Zelda remaster like Wind Waker or Twilight Princess or what have you. I definitely do see one of those releasing with the Switch 2, but as far as like completely switching over in development, it may not be as big a deal for Switch. It just, like I said, like we were talking about, it just depends on what the upgrade is, like what the new hardware is. Because if it's just a more powerful Switch, then it may just be a matter of, okay, we can just like turn a dial and then print a 2 on the game box, and it's good to go.
Yeah. This may be the year I get an OLED, finally.
Yeah, and just to kind of like finish on the hardware, instead of the Joy-Cons sliding on the side and clicking into place, you sort of like pull them apart and slam them back together, and they're connected to the console by this teeny tiny little connector. I don't even think it's an inch high, and it's probably like 2 millimeters thick. And when I first saw that in the video, I thought, so many of those are going to break off. So many stupid kids are going to treat that too roughly, and those things are going to snap off.
Dude, I saw so many people say, "Oh, this is Nintendo. You don't think they changed their hardware? Oh, my 3DS lasted forever. My GameCube lasted forever." It's like, bro, this ain't the same company.
They sure are not.
Nintendo got fucking sued for knowingly launching Joy-Cons that would drift. They knew it was going to fail after a certain amount of playtime and didn't give a fuck. By the way, that lawsuit led to nothing.
As I'm sure their lawyers told them it would. Like, oh, yeah, sure. What's going to happen? They're going to sell hundreds of millions of units, which they did, make millions of dollars selling the games coming, which they have. And to say that they're going to be as durable as their old consoles, there's no way it's going to happen. That is not Nintendo these days. Nintendo, they not only do they don't like double check this hardware as they as much as they should, but they've also gone into the whole like forced scarcity business as well. Only selling the Super Nintendo Minis, like only so many units, or the Super Mario collection, which like I don't know what they sell like 50 of them in the U.S. or something like that. It's some ridiculous. You can't even find it anymore. But yeah, Nintendo has few scruples. Is what I'm getting at.
People want to say, "Oh, in Iwata's day, but now that he died, blah blah blah." It's like, no, dude. Like, this is just business. They made too much money. The best way to keep it is not spend it.
I've said this many times, but Nintendo, they have carved out their own little niche, little spot in the gaming market, and they know gamers have nowhere to go if they want to play Mario or Zelda or Metroid or what have you. They know you want to play these games, you got to deal with our consoles and any hangups that come with it, which I'm sure there will be some for the Switch too. And that video also showed the Joy-Cons being used like mice, placing them on the ends and sliding them across a flat surface.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, that just seems like too much of a hassle. Like,
it's going to be a gimmick like every other fucking thing. For certain first-party titles, yes. But speculation is online stuff, and it's like, why the fuck would you use your Switch as a browser?
I don't know. I certainly wouldn't, that's for sure.
I don't use my normal consoles for that either.
Yeah.
They both have that capability, and I don't bother because I have a fucking laptop.
Me neither. Yeah. Or a phone, too. That's better than either.
They're like, the Switch is bigger than the phone. No. You're not understanding the point here.
I'm guessing it's going to be touchscreen like the original Switch 2. I would assume it is. And because you're absolutely right, the mouse thing is just going to be for like a title or two, and then everybody will forget about it. And I'm guessing you can still use them. I think it showed in the video you can use them like the old Joy-Cons, like little teeny tiny controllers as well, if you wanted to. And I know you talked about the Switch, the stand, which is very nice because in the original Switch it's just this tiny little piece of plastic, but now it's a little bigger piece of plastic, but it's connected and it's U-shaped.
It's an actual. The stand on the, just to paint a picture, the stand on the Switch is a tiny little plastic dongle on one end that can very easily snap off. On the Switch 2, they made it a long bar that covers the entire length of the console.
So it might actually be able to stand up for a given time.
Used for its intended purpose.
The flimsiness of that Switch stand is so bad that I've never even tried to attempt to put it, or I have attempted. I've never bothered with it because it just doesn't. I don't feel confident in that little thing, so I just always end up holding the friggin' thing.
I have never played my Switch in what they call desktop mode, where you put it on that stand. I hold it in my hands, and it's like, well, when my hands get tired, I'll get tired of looking down with my neck or whatever. I would rather do that than take the Joy-Cons out and put it on that shitty little stand.
Same here. And most of the time, I just end up playing my Switch at home in the little docking station. Because I've never been a huge... I've never been huge into playing consoles on the road. I mean, I do it, but luckily I don't have to really commute, or if I am, I'm driving myself, so I can't. So most of my gaming on the Switch is also just at home. And
I haven't in a good long while, but I used to take my Switch to my job at work, and I played handheld. I never took this thing off because it's like, well, if I need to put this away quickly.
And I know some people are disappointed that this is just going to be a bigger and more powerful Switch. But you and I were talking last night. What can you really do? What else can you really do with a video game console? You can play it at home. You can play it on the road. And like we said earlier in the show, VR is not really going anywhere. They're not going to fool with that. They've tried to do that in the past. They're not going to do it again. Besides, like, changing up the Joy-Con gimmicks, which they have, they probably, they know they don't have to mess with the formula. They just say, okay, just make it more powerful.
Nintendo has owned the handheld market since the late 80s with the Game Boy. They just straight up have. You can say, well, Tetris had a big... It's like, no, dude. Microsoft is, like, dancing around it. They're like, well, maybe we'll put it compatible with the Rogue Ally. Maybe we'll come out with our own thing. Sony had 4 of their own handhelds, and they've dumped them all. They're just like, this isn't worth doing. Nintendo has had that shit on lock for forever. So, and nobody's challenging them.
No, they're the best at it, and part of me still thinks of them as kind of a handheld sort of company, but even though a lot of my favorite games have been on their home consoles. But the Switch does both, so it's the best of both worlds, as it were. So and like I said earlier, they figure they don't have to do much else. If it's not broke, don't fix. And they I was telling you this last night, and I was trying to think of the right way to frame it, and I still haven't really done it, but Nintendo has kind of done this whole, like, it's kind of like the base console and the Pro console before that was a thing. They have their one console, like the Wii or the DS, and then they'll have its successor. And then after that, they'll move on to something new. Now, I don't know if that's what they'll do with the Switch after Switch 2, but when they come up with a good idea and it sticks in the market, then they'll ride it out for, better part of a decade before they end up moving on.
The last thing the trailer showed was a date, and for a hot second, I was like, no fucking way, that's the release date. It's not. It's April 2nd is the Nintendo Direct. Because every Nintendo Direct, they're like, there will be no Switch 2 news about this. Every tweet from Nintendo, a billion assholes in the replies are like, Switch 2 win. So this is finally like, here, damn, shut up already.
This definitely did feel like them just throwing the pellets at the birds just to make them quiet down for a little while. Because there's been rumors for Switch 2, well, for years now. I can't even track when it started, but it started to really heat up in the past year when you just heard more and more either accounts or outlets or whatever just calling it the Switch 2, which always seemed like a placeholder name. I thought they would have gone with something else. I would have
Super Switch is what I thought for the longest time.
Yeah, same here. I would have loved if they called it the Super Switch, but I don't mind that they're going simple with the 2.
Now, the most important part, price point. I'm thinking $350. I'm guessing $450.
I'm guessing $399 because if I'm not mistaken, the Switch OLED is $350. Now that might have come down since it released, but I think that started off as $350, so I think they'll want the Switch 2 to be a little bit higher. I have heard rumors that the base console will be $400, and there might be a bundle with the new Mario Kart 9 or 10 or whatever it's going to be. That's going to be $450. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if a lot of the bundles slash off $10 off the market price, because I'm assuming the game itself is going to be $60 when it comes out. It may be $70. Who knows? But I was throwing out $500 last night, and I was a little drunk. I'm not gonna lie. That was probably a little too. I was shooting a little too high there. and after reflection, that was a bit too much. I think you would have a hard time selling people on that.
You do have a point about the games, though. I do think they're going to raise the price of games like Sony and Microsoft have. And of all the companies, Nintendo, we've talked about this in the past, are the worst about this shit. Their games never go below $50. If it's like a kind of meh game like a fucking Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker or something, maybe even that. But I can't fucking find what's that Yoshi game where he's a plush, the Yoshi Woolly World, whatever. I can't find that under like 45. Nintendo games do not go below half in price ever.
The first party games, especially, even third party games, it can be tough finding a similar price to the other consoles too. That's why, if it's like, that's why I'm saying, like, if they charge $450 for a Switch 2, and if they're going to charge even more to upgrade these old backwards compatible games, I'm probably not going to get it for a while. And another reason is, I think you and I are similar in this case, Loki. If you get a third-party game, what are you playing it on?
More than likely PlayStation 5.
Yeah, either on the same way, either PlayStation 5 or maybe the Xbox. I'm not getting a
Is it on Game Pass? Then yeah, I'm going to get it over there.
Yeah, but my point is, I'm not going to get a third-party game on the Switch. That's just, I'm not going to do it. Like, the only exception I made to that was the first 2 Bayonettas last year, and that's solely because I wanted to have them in the same console collection. It was like complete nerd reason. Like, it wasn't like I could have found it cheaper PlayStation.
It could be argued that Bayonetta is first party because Nintendo had a fun 2 and 3 and the spin-off game. This is the 15th anniversary of the first year. God, we're so old. Dude, do not look up what 15th year anniversary it is of so many games. Holy shit. But anyways, it's the 15th anniversary of Bayonetta, and that official account has been teasing out, it's like new stuff, and so nobody's assuming Bayonetta 4, they're assuming to PlayStation and Xbox, finally.
That would be my guess, too. Maybe some cosmetics they might add into the games, but yeah, because 3 just came out, 2 years ago, something like that? And I know they released that Origins Cereza game as well. But yeah, I forgot they funded that. It's a good one, too. But yeah, I can't see them. I can't see the base console. Or I should say, it shouldn't be going over more than $400 for the Switch 2.
What would be the dream game? 3 years from now, they say we're making this, and it's only for Switch 2. And then you say, well, I have to.
It would have to be. It won't be a Zelda. At least not a launch title, because Tears of the Kingdom.
It won't be a Metroid either, by the way. Metroid Prime 4 is still a long ways off.
Yeah, and that's... Even though I and a lot of people consider that one of the Nintendo's biggest franchises, numbers, sales numbers wise, it's not. It just doesn't... It doesn't get up to the same numbers as Mario or Zelda, so... I would say, honestly, a totally revamped Pokemon. Like, if they actually listen to criticisms on the Pokemon games and redid the whole system and actually got the coding correctly and made it a smooth and clean and fun experience, but I know they'll never do that, so I guess my real answer would be like Mario Galaxy 3. That would be pretty cool. But I don't know if that would sell the system for me.
And again, we don't know how far in they're going to keep making regular Switch games. Like, I throw out Metroid Prime 4 because a lot of people are saying, well, that's going to be probably launch 2. 1, I doubt. 2, that's also coming on the Switch.
Did you hear that they were canceling pre-orders for Metroid Prime 4 on Amazon?
Yes, the one that had been there for a long-ass time. Yeah, I knew about that.
Yeah, I think since 2018, when pre-orders first started coming up, but now they're canceling them, and that's probably... I don't know, that might be nothing. That might be, just them changing some code in the Amazon system or whatever, because I haven't heard any other retailers doing that, so I don't know what the deal is. I'm not even the biggest Metroid fan, so I'm not keeping too close a track of it, but But even 4, as anticipated as that is, still won't do as well as a new Mario or a new Zelda. So they're if I had to guess, they're gonna have a new Mario game along with Mario Kart as launch titles.
I mean, if we really let's just take the main line Mario games, not the RPGs and stuff, and the stuff with Luigi. Like Mario Galaxy was so much different than the stuff that came before. And to be 100% honest, Mario Odyssey was so much different than Galaxy. So it's not like we can just predict what the next mainline Mario title will be, because we have no idea. Because they could just do something, we could never fucking think of with their new hardware and software and new gimmicks and shit.
The safest bet would be a completely new Mario type game. Because I don't think it would be like I know Odyssey did very well, but I think Galaxy's probably more popular, Galaxy 1 and 2. So if they did do a sequel to one of those two franchises, I'm guessing it would be Galaxy. You're not going to see a Sunshine 2, I don't think so. But you're right, it's probably going to be something completely new that, wouldn't even think of that they'll release.
As far as their other main, Zelda, they have a small problem, in my personal opinion, with that franchise. So set aside Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom for a second. They've also been releasing these chibi games, which one was a remaster of the Link's Awakening, in this chibi style. And they did a new one with Zelda. What the fuck is it called? Echoes of Wisdom.
Yeah, spin-off.
So they've got that settled. But as far as mainline Zelda games, they've changed the formula for gameplay and stuff so much with Breath and Tears, I don't think you can go backwards to standard dungeon crawling item getting.
I kind of agree with you there, and I don't think they would want to. I think in their minds, and I think there's a good possibility that they'll come out with a remastered version of a older Zelda title to launch with the Switch 2, and to sort of like scratch that itch in their eyes, saying, okay, well,
because they did that with Skyward Sword.
Right. Because the open world format of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom has been so lucrative for them and so widely popular that they probably just think, okay, we just need to stick with this in the foreseeable future, just kind of build on this. And Breath of the Wild is a fantastic game, and Tears of the Kingdom is also very good, but it's a tad derivative in my opinion because it is almost a carbon copy of Breath of the Wild. So it'd be nice if they actually, made some actual improvements on the formula. But
I would assume it would be brand new universe. You know what I mean? Like new Link, new Zelda, new all that shit.
Yeah, they might go back to Kid Link universe or timeline or whatever it is. It's been a while since I've watched my Zelda timelines video, but it definitely could see a Twilight Princess or a Wind Waker HD for Switch 2 or something like that, just to sort of appease the old school fans that were more of a fan of the dungeon diving. Yeah, well, me too, yeah. As much as I like the Breath of the Wild open world style of game, it's like you said, it's very different from the old Zelda games. So, and the fact that they haven't re-released those is kind of amazing, just because the Nintendo just seems to not be able to help themselves in that. But with Wind Waker and Twilight Princess in particular, they've shown surprising restraint in not releasing remasters for those. So maybe they have been waiting for Switch 2.
There was a remaster of Wind Waker on the Wii U, which, whatever. I don't recall if there was one for Twilight Princess. I don't think there was.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I can't remember if it was a dual release either, if it came out for Wii and Wii U. I might be thinking of Skyward Sword. But yeah.
Skyward Sword came out for the Wii, did not come out for the Wii U, was remastered for the Switch. Twilight Princess came out for the GameCube and then the Wii.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I forget how far back it was.
Yes.
That's another game that I don't want to look at when it was released because it'd be another example of me feeling old, so.
Well, us getting older means we have to be a little bit more careful with our money. Yes, I know it's funny me saying that. So the Switch 2 needs to be like, unless like uh, the government decides to give me a shitload of money this year, I can't see a possibility where I would immediately buy it this year. Also, I don't know that's launching this year. Do we think 2025 for real?
I think so. I read some rumors along with the price points that it might be released in June. I don't know if I believe that. I
The direct is in April and the release is in June. Hell no. They need to prov retailers.
I exactly. I don't think that's going to happen. It's far more likely if it came out this year, it'd be releasing in the fall. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Maybe early winter, but even that would be cutting it close for the holiday season. I think it's. I think it's more likely, perhaps a September October release. I know that's kind of not really well. What is a standard console release, really? But Nintendo plays by their own rules, as we know.
Yes, they do.
So I definitely see it maybe being later this year. It's coming out. But we'll find out in April. And I actually, before I forget, they were promoting, Nintendo was, they were promoting events where you could play the Switch 2, and I actually did sign up for one
yes.
because I live near one of the
pre-register.
I live near one of the host cities, and I decided, what the heck, I'll just sign up for this. I tried to game the system by trying to register for every time slot so I could, have a higher chance of getting selected for one. But it doesn't work that way. You sign up for one, you're registered for all of them, and you have to unregister if you want to, re-register. So, because I was going down the list, I went, okay, yeah, Friday 10 a.m. or like to 11 a.m. I think was the first one. I was like, okay, I'll just go down the list. I signed up for that one, and it's like, okay, you're signed up for all. It's like, okay, that's your one ticket. I was like, wait a minute, no. If I have a preference, I'm going to want to go in the afternoon. So I unregistered for that one and registered for one in Saturday afternoon. But they're selecting it with a lottery, so I know I won't get selected. But I figured I'd try.
You're not typically lucky in these kinds of things.
No, I'm not. I've learned to live with that, but I figured it didn't hurt trying, so.
That'd be really cool to see. I remember back when they had PAX down here in San Antonio. Before the Switch launched, they had the Switch at PAX. And they had to cut off the line because the line was so fucking massive. They're like, okay, if you're past this part, you're no longer part of the line. And I remember being in a line of people. I wasn't even all that interested in the Switch at the time. But I remember being in a huge line of people. And one of the people, they used to call them enforcers who work at PAX. Just security people. Came up to like a group of 20 of us that were in line. And it says, okay, everybody in this line needs to leave. You are not part of the Nintendo Switch thing. And none of us fucking moved. And the enforcer says, all right, thank you.
Wow, really living up to his job title there, the enforcer. Can you
because
move?
It's like, what the fuck? That's literally why everyone is here to see this shit. Now, I eventually did go because it's like, I didn't actually care that much. And again, I didn't care until 2020. Shit, it could be argued I barely care now. I do really like my Nintendo Switch. I played it 4 days ago. But in like all of 2024, you don't want to see my numbers for that.
To express my level of interest, when I first saw the trailer Thursday, the teaser for the Nintendo Switch 2, I didn't think of any new possible brand new titles that might be releasing exclusively for it. The first thing I thought of was, oh, cool, I can play Tears of the Kingdom at 60 FPS and Bayonetta 3 at 60 FPS. That was my first thought. And that's not really a good sign when you're announcing a new console. Now, I'm just one customer, obviously. But I think that's probably going to be a big draw for a lot of potential Switch 2 customers. Because, why would they add the little blurb that they're going to make as many games backwards compatible as they can? Because they know that's what a lot of people are going to be interested in. But I am still intrigued to see what, exclusive titles they will be coming up with. It's, we said earlier it's going to be some tentpole ones, but there might be some surprises in there. Who knows?
My guess for the Direct, again, we're several months away. My guess is they're going to show 5.
That's a good number. 5. Maybe 6, but 5 is... Excuse me, that's a solid guess.
Well, this I don't know if this is going to come across on the microphone, but another thing going to be lost in the Switch 2 is their marketing. When the Japanese guys say, "Please take a look at this," and they make the snap with their fingers, these aren't snapping anymore. They're shitty little magnets. So how the fuck do you do that? You have to clap?
Is that you actually clicking in your Joy-Con?
No, I just did that with my fingers.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, your Joy-Cons are really loud. Mine don't snap that loud. Or click.
You know what I mean? When those two Japanese dudes are like, "Please look forward to this new game." Bow.
Yeah, they'll
Take a look at this. Snap.
They'll have to come up with a new bit now that it's a totally different sound and motion.
Maybe they'll slap each other.
Yeah.
Slap.
Now that would be funny. Just two of them. Next game, please. But whatever they do, I'm sure they'll sell a bunch. As many as the original Switch. That's another thing I'll be interested to see. We'll
see. We started this show talking about mostly Sony's dumbass, retarded, fuck all problems, and Xbox has their own issues, but they're not hurting financially. Nintendo absolutely isn't. Like, again, I said this about Fortnite. I'm hesitant to say it because Nintendo has had problems recently, especially their American branch, which is doing a lot of retarded shit in terms of like censorship. But Nintendo is too big to fail. They would have to have a massive fuck up. Like, the Wii U wasn't a fuck up, really. People say, "Oh, it's the worst thing they ever did." It really wasn't. That's probably like the Virtual Boy or something. But I don't know how badly Nintendo would have to fuck up now to ruin them.
They would... I don't know. It seems like they're constantly, perpetually playing with house money. I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know what they would have to do.
That is a thing, like... As opposed to Sony, which is one entity, don't let anyone tell you otherwise, it's an American company. Nintendo of Japan and Nintendo of America really are two different companies.
For sure. And I think I'm safe in saying this without actually looking at any numbers to back it up, but I would say Nintendo is probably the most popular gaming brand in Japan itself, like even bigger than Sony. So you got... And they love handheld gaming over there, which is why Nintendo is still always, kept the focus on it to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And they're gonna sell a bunch of Switch 2s over there in Japan too, and they'll sell a bunch over here. So they'll be just fine, that's for sure.
Nintendo does what Seg don't.
Beautiful, yeah, seamless.
Too Switch, too furious.
Now, if they named it that, I might be a little more interested.
The old switcheroo. I'm just testing out titles for this episode.
That's a good one too.
Yeah. Okay, cutting it and using that. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Internet's Worst Gaming Podcast. Again, to remind you, in case you forgot over the last hour, I'm Loki Jarson. You can find me on X at Loki Jarson.
Yes, and I am Joe Stizzy, and you can find me on X at the Joe Stizzy, and on YouTube at Joe Stizzy, simply.
Easy to remember. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.